Welcome, Major Convos.
We're back.
Guess who's back? How are you, mate?
I like the outfit you're wearing today. It's almost the same as the other one.
This is my podcast outfit. What are you talking about?
I like it. It's very in vogue.
Mate, brilliant potty today with our friend Brad Donald.
Yeah, he's a great guy and really feel very privileged to have him working in our business, but also that he gave us the time on the podcast and talk about the stuff he's done. He's a really humble guy, but
He is.
he's achieved a lot.
Yeah, 100%. You could do a whole pod just going through his story and different experiences that he's had. I think that in itself would be inspiring, and you'd get some nuggets of information out of it for sure. But hopefully today, I mean, we touched on a lot of different things, his background and journey, and just all about leadership and people and growth. All things that we love talking about. So it was really cool to get his perspective. I mean, his business Huddle is doing some Huddle coaching, doing some great stuff in particular with us, but at Major. But also we know he has a lot of other customers that I'm sure are equally impressed by his work.
Yeah, and his sporting credentials, I think he glosses over them very quickly, but he certainly has a legacy on Australian sport, particularly in the women's NRL, that will be there forever.
Yeah, 100%.
And he could be credited with certainly the early days of getting it to where it is today. So he shared some really great insights, and we covered, even family stuff.
Yeah, we always end up learning some other things along the way. There's always something. There's always some lessons in there. But great chat. Appreciate his time, and on the back of the episode that we did recently, where we spoke about your trip and leadership, I think like lots of really good information that people can take away coming from this pod with Brad, and hopefully even anyone listening that might want to work with Brad. I think you'd be silly not to.
100%.
Welcome, Brad.
Hey, Brad. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, boys. Nice to be here.
You've been on a few potties before, or what?
Yeah, I've done a few. I have definitely done.
I saw there's one on your website that you.
Oh yeah.
Video.
I have a couple on my website. Some for good, some for bad, or like my kind of not necessarily me. Like I might have appeared on some controversially.
Oh, true.
Yeah, over the years, not everyone likes the team that you select or the tactics that you employ. But yeah, certainly had.
You read the social media comments?
Oh, look, early days, it's hard not to, but you get a pretty big shock to the ego when some of them cut a bit close to home. So I can remember around campaign time ringing my mum and dad especially, because I think my mum and dad in the early days of my coaching career just discovered Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad thought it was his job to jump in and
defending you.
Yeah, that's my son, and I'd have to ring him and say, "Hey, look, that's not good, Dad."
Yeah,
like,
you're making me look like a little bitch.
That's right. I said I wouldn't swear, but I learnt this early from somebody that came and basically helped us with some media training and social media training as it emerged, like in the early 2000s and 2010s with our players, was that social media comments, they're like dog shit. Like you see them on the lawn, and if you choose to read them, it's like choosing to step in the dog shit. So I pretty much employed that theory for the rest of my career.
That's fair. I was thinking with your dad that you probably rang him and said, "Dad, I can't say it, so you're going to have to say it for me. Get on there and fucking tell them."
Yeah. I think the amount of hate that came back his way would have been there all night.
That's the trouble. Most of the people have too much time, so they will respond back and forth and all that sort of stuff.
Getting a response is their favourite thing.
Yeah. Look,
and the need for people to share their unneeded opinion, like it's you would have it's such a high profile thing that you were doing. It would have been prolific. My wife had it happen just on. She was looking for some help at home, and like she got absolutely obliterated online, and it was like so unnecessary. It was like just move on,
just ask for a bit of help.
Scroll past that. Like if it's not for you, then don't. But in a high performance sporting environment,
that'd be hard.
People have a lot to say.
I want to get into your history, but just a question that runs off the back of that. Did you ever though have a moment where you like read a comment or saw something and they were right?
Oh,
Do you know what I mean? Like, did you
yeah,
ever have that moment? Did you ever have that moment where you're like, fuck, they are onto it?
Absolutely. I think, like the end of my career as the national head coach, I come under a whole bunch of media scrutiny. And it was about not selecting a player that the public thought should be selected. And I wasn't willing to give up. The reason why we hadn't publicly, because we were talking about a 23, 24-year-old girl that really could have undone her career. But, you know, there were some comments in there that were probably spot on that people knew, could read between the lines.
Yeah.
But I tell you, you know, back to the conversation about, I think our kids, like I've got a 17 and a 20-year-old, when this was going down, my wife felt like quite ill about some of the comments that were being made. And my boys put it in perspective and said, hey, Mum, this is normally someone that sits behind a keyboard. And if you actually have a look, they've got about 10 friends. So they do this stuff. And
gives them purpose.
Yeah, and then they were like, don't worry about it. You know? So it was pretty good perspective. At the time, probably, you know, 15, 16 sort of years of age. So
some of those media people, though, that are critical, they're probably similar to those people behind the keyboard.
Oh,
10 friends.
Absolutely. And they're all fake.
I can say it because they don't know me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Look, we've already started, but I guess take us back. We want to talk about where you're at now and the leadership work that you're doing and you know, working with businesses and, you know, all about growing people ultimately. But take us back to your journey. Obviously, we're talking about professional rugby league coaching.
Yeah. It's a bit of a story, but
we'd love to hear it, mate.
No, look, I started out. I wasn't a very good football player, so and I didn't have I got played in the front row, and look at the size of me, so I sort of
played in the front row,
like in the bush, and it sort of made me
Coach
passionate about coaching, because I'm going, who puts a bloke 4'2", 100 kilos in the front row, and it probably made sense. I was willing to run and tackle. But I'd done a teaching degree. I moved out to Bathurst. There was a great opportunity. Country footy was really strong out in the Western region. Yeah. So, you know, sort of coupled the teaching and the coaching together. Become a captain coach. Yeah. Right. And went through what a lot of, you know, foremen go through, or what a lot of people in organisations that start out as the player, as they transition into like a captain coach and then into a coach leadership, or a manager. Yeah. So you learn a lot of lessons there. When I remember the first team that I captain coached, there was 2 other captain coaches that were probably 5 to 10 years older than me in that team. And to get them on board was really tricky because they wanted that job just as much as what I did. And so I probably learned a lot on the fly, you know. So you've got to transition from being everyone's mate to sort of being a mate, but also leading, and then to that point where you're no longer actually playing and you're actually inspiring and coaching. So I did a bit of that for a long time, and pretty much my career was straddled with management at the NRL from a game development point of view, that then moved into more of the high performance, but also coaching at the same time, and sort of moved from Western New South Wales to the Canberra Raiders and did some really cool things there. Got a chance to coach, got a chance to manage a region of development staff, and then moved up to So
you were doing multiple things at the same time?
Yeah. So
does a lot of people do that? Is that normal?
It sort of is. There's a lot of people in sport, especially when you're down the bottom, where everybody wants to get their hands on the sexy stuff, which is like the NRL or the A-League type stuff if it's football related. And so you might end up having to do a development job as well as, coaching kids and clinics, as well as supplementing your desire to coach at a high level. So, even when I was the Jillaroos coach, my role at the NRL at the time was I was the elite programs manager. So I had to manage the Kangaroos program, the junior Kangaroos program, the Australian Schoolboys program. So that was sort of my day-to-day role. Yeah. And then it was sort of coupled with a coaching gig. So
people wouldn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and look, it is. There's not that many, full-time coaches roles.
Fair.
Outside of, you see it in the pathways programs at NRL clubs, and Even the NRLW, when it kicked off back in 2018, I think you'd be stretched to say that there is, because they only play for 6 months of the year. Those full-time staff would have another job outside of NRLW coaching. It might be pathways, or it might be something to do with recruitment and retention at the club. So, yeah.
So with the Jillaroos thing, obviously, it'd be good to understand that, because I know that has given you a lot of insights, a lot of learnings as to what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I right? Is my research right? 9 years with them?
Yeah, did 9 years. Had
plenty of world titles.
Yeah, a couple of world titles. Yeah, or World Cups. But there's so many learnings out of that. You know, I got involved when I first moved up here in 2010. I came up to be the coach and director for the Queensland Rugby League, and I said to them, I really want to coach. And, because that's what I'd been doing. And they said, no, we'll look after you. We'll make sure you get a coaching gig as well.
You only did men's prior to that?
Yeah, men's only. And then when they first said to me, we need you to go out and talk to our Queensland women, I was like, women play rugby league? Like I was quite ignorant and embarrassed about it now, and probably made me super responsible for taking the game where it went. Went out, did a session with the Queensland women's team, a bunch of legends who are now like in the Hall of Fame. And the first thing that I noticed was how coachable these ladies were, like, and what they didn't have. I remember thinking, I'd spoken about a review. I said, have you guys done a review of your game? They said, we don't really know what you're talking about. So I said, where are the tapes from your, I think it might have been CDs at the time. They'd sort of looked at their own games, and they'd given themselves their own harsh criticisms, which females like to do. And that's where I pretty much said, well, I better jump in and help these guys. So that was the start of the journey with the women. And then I was able to use my roles through the game, be it the coaching director and the state manager for Queensland at the NRL, to actually help create pathways for women at the bottom of the game, and whilst I was coaching at the top. So it was really cool. Yeah. And then in 2016, got the chance to take on the Jillaroos. And yeah, there's a bit of a story in that too.
What was the quick... obviously you'd been coaching already for a fair while at that point in time, bringing it back to leading people. Yep. Talked about captain coaching, and then obviously, how was that when you transitioned into the women's game, and then obviously you said they were very coachable. Did you find that easier than previous stuff you'd done?
Look, totally different, and I've done 1,000 workshops on the differences between males and females. Some of the stuff with males makes it easier, and some of the stuff with females makes it easier.
Yeah,
but then within every personality, there's a difference as well.
I even mean though, being coachable is like that's the dream come true when you're working with someone that actually is
too right.
Yeah.
I quite often tell this story too. At the end of that first session, there was a lineup of players to talk to me afterwards. Now, I didn't know any of these guys. Like, you guys know, like if it's knock-off time with the boys at work or at training or whatever, they're in the car and they're out of there. They can't wait to get out of there. But every single lady lined up, and it took me about an hour and a half to get out of there. And there was this one girl, and she was sort of floating around the back, and she wanted to go last. You could tell. Anyway, she come up to me and she said, "Hey, coach, I really can't wait to work with you. I just wanted to let you know I got an injury." And I went, "Oh, okay, no worries. Like, let's get to see a physio." "Oh, I've sort of seen a family friend and all the rest of it, but I've put some weight on." And I go, "Oh, well, I can get you to a nutritionist, right?" And she's like, "Oh, no." And then she ended up in tears and disclosed a whole bunch of other things that I tried to find the remedies for. And in the end, she basically just hugged me. And she's crying and she goes, "I can't wait to play for you, coach." And off she went and left me standing there. Everybody had left. And I'm scratching my head just thinking, what happened? Get in the car, ring my wife, and I said, "Hey, I'm an hour and a half late. Sorry about that." And I told her what happened. And she goes, "You're an idiot." She goes, "I've been telling you this for ages." She goes, "Women don't want you to fix their problems. We just want to be heard." So it was a really good learning early days.
Your wife's been telling you that forever.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of trouble since then. Like, that was 2010, and there's been times when she goes, "These boys are driving me mad," and I just sit there and go, "Oh, are they? Are they?" And she goes, "Are you going to do something about it?" I said, "Oh, I thought I was just meant to listen."
Yeah, I thought you just wanted to have a vet.
Yeah, but look, some great learnings there. And when we got into, when I got my predecessor was Steve Folkes at the Jillaroos, and rest in peace, Folkesy, legend of a guy. He'd won premierships with the Bulldogs. Was a great coach. Wasn't a great communicator, and the girls some of the girls didn't like that. So I remember thinking, I don't want to be the next Folkesy, and you guys don't like me after a year or two. Not that they loved him, but they just didn't like that lack of communication. So I sat down and I asked them, what do you guys want to do here? And I'm thinking, in 2017, there's a World Cup. I'd sort of convinced the family and myself, okay, I'll do a year and a half. I'll get in, hopefully win a World Cup, and then I'm sort of done. Mm. And we sat around and I asked them, and they go, oh, we want to take the game to new levels. We want to make sure that there's an NRLW for women to play. In 2016, there was nothing. Mm. We want to see the first woman get a payment for playing our sport. So that hadn't happened in 2016. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm not just going to be the coach of this team. I'm going to be the facilitator of the movement. At the time, I'd taken on the role with the Kangaroos. So I'm looking at a, $6, $7, $8 million budget over here for how we run the Kangaroos program. And then I'm looking at what these girls want to achieve. So, and I think what happened then is we addressed all of those issues, or not all of those issues, but we basically put them as goals, and then the World Cup became a byproduct of that, and the success of the team became a byproduct of all the other things that they were trying to achieve. Mm. And that's something that I've now taken into business coaching in terms of making sure we sit down, look way down the track, have a look at what we're trying to, what's our just cause, or what's our vision, and then basically if we're looking up there, the little things get gobbled up pretty quickly. Mm.
I wanted to ask you that's a perfect segue, I guess, like from that trends, the translation of skills and elements of professional sport into business. Yep, there's obviously a lot of that.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie to you. It scared the absolute bejeepers out of me when I thought, 25 years in sport, I wanted to give something else a shake, another challenge. I wasn't sure if it was transferable. I'd been doing little bits and pieces of consulting with some construction companies. And look, one thing that I knew was that we'd built capacity across the whole rugby league network in terms of coaches. So it was like my job to make sure that every kid that played rugby league in Australia, that our team had put together a coaching course or a leadership course at the right level, from the under sixes all the way through to the NRL. Mm. So I knew, and we had attached that to something called the personal assets framework, which really concentrated on the 4 key components of when you lead someone, you're building confidence, competence, character, and connection. And that become the basis of what needed to transfer over into business. And it happened really quickly for me, and I was really lucky that we had a couple of early wins. So, and I think what we haven't not had a win because it is so transferable, that leadership in sport, a lot of the time sport goes and looks at the corporate way to do things. Yeah. And I think flipping that back around, and now we're having to look back in, I can see a time where we're really going to change what a manager is, and they're going to become more of a coach as we, as the corporate world emerges over the next 100 years. Mm. 100 years, that's a big statement.
That's a long way.
That's a big statement for me.
Probably 5 years.
Probably 5, 10.
Yeah.
We're moving fast. AI soon.
Yeah.
AI will be the coach.
Nah, we'll never replace human connection.
And I
never replace human connection.
Not the connection part.
Absolutely. And I think that's another reason why we've been so successful. A couple of mates and myself started up Huddle Coaching and Leadership, and we've put together these courses very similar to the coaches' courses. One of the things that over the years, we were trying to make things easier for coaches to get accreditation, but the easier you make it, the more watered down the product. You have to do that face-to-face. And I think, no one would disagree that AI is blowing up and we're all going to need it, but we're also got to understand we're going to need to keep those skills of the face-to-face interaction, because anywhere where people interact, that's super important, especially on work sites.
You mentioned your business. The framework that you've obviously brought from your coaching career, and you just mentioned it then. What did you call it? Sorry.
It's a personal assets framework.
Yeah. So you use that obviously in your coaching. Have you found that with business, you've got to, you mentioned before, not, lowering that standard to get them into the coaching, you get them all accredited or whatever. Do you find with businesses that you have to sort of, I guess, find a way to make it relative, or does it come across quite easily? Like I imagine if you're talking with me, it's probably easier because I played football, know football. But what about if you're dealing with someone that's not coming from, I guess, that that understanding?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think we've had 200 people go through the courses already, and we've got a 90% feedback from those courses. Definitely been mentioned in 4 or 5 that where people just don't relate to sport, but everywhere else, I think people have got that knowledge of what happens in sport. That there is a coach, that there is someone leading a team. That it is enough, and it's really relative. And if you've got kids, then they're normally playing sport or they've got a teacher. I think Simon Sinek talks about how everybody should have a coach. If you want to get good at something, you have got a coach. If you want to play golf well, you get a coach. If you want to play tennis well, you get a coach. And I think that's, rather than get a coach in the corporate world, we've got to turn our leaders into coaches. And if they can coach someone to be as good as them, that gives them opportunity to rise up. And that's been really successful as well.
Matt and I always talk about people that have grown up playing sport are often great communicators, or not necessarily leaders, because that's different, but like even you mentioned before, sometimes you're the captain of the team and that person's usually naturally a leader in some way. Some are quiet and they just do the work and lead by action. Others are good communicators. You see that having now transitioned into business. Do you see that?
And look, not every sports player, and you get into the elite, is a great team player either. So you get a lot of selfish players that your job as the coach is to make them understand that there's a greater role for the team here than your day-to-day
But there's lots of examples where, and you probably had it, where the great individual player was strategically removed from a team, even though they were the fastest runner or whatever. And like sales is an easy example, not just sales, but like a person might go out there and get the most sales in an organization, but all the carnage that they leave behind or the lack of team that they bring together, it's not worth the individual win. That's a real crossover, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely, mate. Yeah, too right, because it can do a lot of damage if you've got somebody that, if I want to score 4 tries, but the team needs to score 5, and I'm getting in the way of us scoring 2 more, then we don't get a result. And that's part of what, like you're coaching an individual and you're coaching a team, and it's making those people, it's no different than the coach themselves, having the self-awareness of what skills they've got and what blind spots they've got, and making that individual have that same self-awareness around the people in their team and what they're trying to do collectively. It seems simple for someone that coaches. Like you get into the nitty-gritty of things like a crucial conversation, or people call it a tough conversation, or there's no such thing in our world. Like as coaches, we actually have to tell somebody every week that they're not in the team. And there's a way to do that without it telling them that they're not in the team. It's about just having a discussion with 30 players individually about what they've got to do to make the team, and what they didn't necessarily do, or ask them what they think they need to do to get back in the team that week. And it just comes through a whole different lens. And once we teach those skills and that questioning technique, then it's really, really simple. It's no longer a tough conversation.
How do you do that in business though? If I want to tell Matt that he hasn't made the team this week,
I don't think you can tell Matt that he hasn't made the team.
Matt owns the team. It's hard to. Might be best if you're not playing this week, Matt.
I know. I've learned. I'm a slow learner, but I've learned the places to play in and the places not to. So
that's.
I think that comes with time and many mistakes beforehand. So I think that's something if you're coachable and you're willing to keep learning, then those opportunities to step out of places that you shouldn't be in and you should be in come with it. But I love that analogy because I think it's sometimes some people don't find it easy to connect the dots between sport and business. But you know, there's a story, and I won't share the specifics, but you know, there was a leading coach of a leading sporting team in Australia, and he talked about how he removed the highest performing player and everyone crucified the coach. And you know, in business, similarly, sometimes you got to make that sacrificial change, or there's a person who leaves and you can't tell all the context as to why. But they went on to totally change the trajectory of that team. And you know, the next year they got to the finals and lost, and then the following year they won. And you know, it wasn't that one person, one thing, but it created momentum in the right direction and the culture that allowed for it to keep going. And I see that in our own story of where we came from 10 or more years ago, where some things changed, some people changed, some different beliefs changed, and that created space for us to step into a different momentum to get us to where we are today. That's why that constant investment, and also the reality of having the right people, you know, on the bus or in the right team who have that collective vision that you talked about it before, is the constant conversation. Because if you don't, we don't get the result that we ultimately want.
Look, I got a very similar. The first game that I ever coached for the Jillaroos had a very similar situation, and in that conversation back in 2016, when I said to the girls, like, well, you know, what were some of the issues, and it was like, oh well, some of us aren't fit enough because of the haphazard way that the program's set up, and then we would get told that we needed to be at a certain level, but the team would get picked without there being any testing. I said, oh, great, easy. We can do that. We can do that. So manipulated the budget, took some of the money out of the Kangaroos budget. We won't mention that to anyone. So we actually got the opportunity to bring the players in 2 weeks before our first campaign against New Zealand. And what happened was we given them a 30-15 fitness test with some goals. Middle forwards had to get 17. And we went out, we did the testing, and our captain of the last 9 years, Steph Hancock, got 16.5. And all of a sudden there was mayhem amongst the group. I got players coming up to me going, oh, you know Steph's like been sick. I go, yeah. You know, Steph's like, oh, you know, she works shift work. She's a police officer and I go, yeah, I know that. And so straight away I knew what was going on, right? So the guys had asked for a standard. They'd asked for a standard to be met. They were then looking at me to make some sort of a call. So I just got them in the room and I basically said, hey guys, World Cup's next year. If you guys come second, will you be happy with that? If you guys go near enough, and is it good enough? And basically just through asking them those questions, I didn't even need to say that the captain for the last 9 years wasn't going to play in that test, in that first test. And that really set the tone. Because it was teaching the team also to self-regulate, because it wasn't like I could have stood there and made the standards higher and all the rest of it, but collectively they'd made an agreement amongst themselves. And I just asked them, you've got to be pretty dangerous if you change that. Because if you drop that standard, and Steph was really, really disappointed. She'd sort of said, 2nd of December 2017, my home World Cup, I could see myself lifting the trophy up, and now somebody else is going to be the captain and I'm going to have to come back from that, and I don't think I can. I go, of course you can. And we actually went through a visualisation session where I sat with her and we talked her through. She got as fit as she'd ever been, ended up kickstarting another part of her career where she played about another 3 or 4 years of NRLW. And there's a picture of me on stage. I don't know how this happened because a coach should never get on stage with her holding the cup up and the flames and everything going back on the 2nd of December. So it was really cool, and we really set that standard from that point forward.
It's a great pivot point. The standards is so pivotal. Like, what's the shaping of a standards? You can be the coach who sets them, or you think you've got to do it with the team?
Yeah, definitely with the team and guide the team. If you don't get that buy-in, then you're just like
They don't mean anything.
No, they don't, and it's more of a dictatorship if that happens. Now, look, some coaches get away with that, I think, but for a short time. It's like we're moving as a group, a collective being of 30 or 40 staff and players, and if we all agree to something and we self-regulate, then we're going to achieve great things. I think, that was an early lesson, and look at the end of the career, I think we went 15 years coaching Queensland and Australia, lost one Queensland Origin game and lost one Test match. My big thing around selection was, and like what I had to do was tease it out of the players, was good human first. Adhere to the values. Our values were respect, inspire, selfless and excellence, and we knew exactly what that meant in terms of our day-to-day behaviours. When we went back to our club, that meant that we had to show all of those things as well. Selfless, if we had a player that started to be selfish outside of the walls of, it was still, that would stop them from getting into the team. So though knowing what they are, but again, if I had have just turned around and said, they're my standards, they probably all would have thought that I was too hard. And in the end, that's probably why that last lady didn't get selected and why there was so much heat on me. She was the NRL's Dally M Player of the Year and didn't get selected in the campaign. We won the campaign. And then when we went to go to Las Vegas and play there, basically the team was selected without my knowledge and that player was selected in there, and I just couldn't be part of that because it sat outside of my values and what I'd agreed upon with the group. So that was pretty much when I stepped out.
Going into business coaching and leadership, what's your approach? How do you start? Where do you start when you walk into a new business?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of places. First of all, is to get a bit of an understanding about what the business has already got. Do you have a vision? Do you have, to use Simon Sinek's term, a just cause? What are you guys trying to do? Like vision, values, and a lot of businesses have that. If not, the next thing that we look at then is like potentially the hierarchy or the way that things are set up. Where we can help, and what I like to do then is dip into the leadership aspect of it. And basically get an understanding of what are the philosophies of the organisation when it comes to each leader's own personal leadership philosophy, because I think that should be attached to the business. And I think that, it's the same as coaching. Like we want people to develop their own coaching philosophy, but it's got to be aligned with the game or it's got to be aligned with the business. So... and that's
a really powerful point because if the business has no ethics or morals, but you've got a high values leader, they're always going to be in conflict, aren't they?
Absolutely, and it won't work, mate. Yeah, and I think that's why it's important, and so your majority of great businesses have that alignment. Yeah. And then, I think, again, it goes to self-awareness. We do a little bit of a very basic leadership style survey, which gives us an understanding. I know you guys do some profiling of your people as well, but it does give you some self-awareness of the sort of person that you are and where you can help. Yeah. And then that's where we jump in and really make our leaders understand the impact that you can have, not just on, and again, this is my coaching philosophy. It's not about the impact you can have on the field. It's about the impact that you can have on people when they go home, their careers. The greatest accolades in my life as a coach have had nothing to do with the trophies. It's had everything to do with the personal wins that some of those people that you coached have got. And I think if you have that philosophy, then you're going to have strong teams and you're going to have people that want to show up for you as a leader.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I mean, it's something that I've always loved and respected about Matt is that he genuinely wants our people to be the best versions of themselves. It's not just what they do at work. If they left Major, he wants them to be able to have grown in that period of time and left a better person than when they arrived. So,
look, that was really evident, and it's by no accident that I'm working with you guys a little bit more regularly because that was something that I figured out really early on as well. Like when I first jumped into this coaching corporate space, I was saying yes to everything because I was thinking, I've just got to grab whatever I can. But as soon as you don't have that alignment, and as soon as you have a business owner that doesn't want to invest in their people, then I'm no good for you. Yeah, it's a waste of their money and it's a waste of my time. So I think, and that's what we're in a really fortunate situation now as the Huddle Group grows, where we've made it a high priority that we only align with organisations that want to invest in their people, because we know that we can move the needle.
We're similar in the training space, really, aren't we? Like,
Well, yeah, and people, and people say it, but you got to do it.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
that's I've seen that distinction. You know, they'll sit around a room and talk about their people, complain about their people, but you ask them what they're doing about investing in their people, and they're not doing anything. And I think I mentioned it on another episode, but there was a coach that I heard speak in America, and she said, these pundits, and I didn't know the term, but the commentators, if all you do is commentate on your people, you're just a commentator. You're not a coach. So be a coach. You've got to invest, and you've got to be with your people. And I thought it was a very, very powerful. And she was actually the female coach of the university team.
what team was that?
Duke Uni.
Oh, that was Duke as well.
But,
Yeah, right.
It was just a really powerful point. You're nothing but a commentator if all you do is complain about your people. And I've sat in a few round table readings, and I hear those people make those comments, and then you stump them when you ask them, well, what have you done to invest in your people? So, it's big for me, and I think Corey did say that it's very nice of him, but I genuinely want people to be a better version, both at home, in their personal life, win at home and in their personal life as well as in business while they're here, and hope they're here for a long time. And we get the benefit of that, working with better people and in their journey while they're here and then beyond, hopefully. That's my desire.
Mate, it's a perfect people hack. I say it all the time. Like the people don't care what you know until they know you care, and when you care for them, you get it's like the more you know about a person, the more they're willing to do for you, and that's on a personal level. Like it really is a people hack. If you invest in your people, it might be time. That's the greatest thing. I quite often say the greatest thing you can give somebody is your time, and if you give them the time and the understanding, and you hear about all of those things, be it a player or and these guys are our superstars. No matter if you're running a construction company with scaffolders or labourers, they're the superstars of the team. They're the same as the highly paid athletes that I've created in the rugby league world. That if you treat them like that, they'll feel treated like that, and they'll understand. And I think some businesses do that super well.
Is that the most common mistake you see, or is it something what you've observed coming across into business environment? What you see is missed.
There's a couple of things. I think that's definitely one, and people can fall into the trap of, she's only a labourer, or he's only that's not. Every person, and especially I love the way some of the organisations set up. I've spent some time at the UFC, and I know they set that place up around seeing the athletes. So all of the bankers and all of the marketing people could actually look out the windows and see who was making the money for them. And I know some of the places, even here, is set up like that. You see, you can see outside and see the people that are actually creating the money for you. So I think that's super important. The other one that seems to come through really, really strongly of what I've learned is a servant-based leadership style is really prevalent. Especially in construction, and probably more broadly across leadership, because people that are willing to roll their sleeves up and get in and have a dig will get themselves to a position of management, but we don't give them the skills. It's a totally different set of skills once you're managing people. It doesn't matter what career you follow. It might be a carpenter. There's a certain amount of skills that you need to be a great carpenter. And once you get to a certain level and you make that person a foreman of 4 carpenters, it's a totally different set of skills that you need when it comes to leadership, when it comes to being able to talk to them, be able to inspire them. And a lot of those people are what we call servant-based leaders, and they will quite often jump in and fix things rather than coach. So a lot of the work that we've done is with servant-based leaders who are absolutely rippers, because they'll have a dig and they'll have a go, but showing them actually how to coach those skills.
Do you think that is a fallout from the way we manage HR in Australia?
Yeah, I do. I think I know your thoughts on this, and maybe I know your thoughts on this, but I think we've got to teach every single person that's a coach is the HR person, not an outside resource that when something goes wrong, we go, oh, go and see the HR person, or I can't deal with this person, so I go to the HR person. No, if you're a leader, you are that person. It's a bit like...
it's in the news recently. There's a tech CEO, he sacked the HR department because he wants the leaders to be connected to their people.
It's part of the role, and that's like there's it's twofold. We really need to teach the leaders that that's part of their role, and we need to make them accountable for it and show them what that is. In sport, we ended up with like wellbeing managers, but what they turned into was welfare managers. So as soon as something went to shit, we'd just go and see that person. But like, I don't cop that. If something's wrong with one of my employees, one of my team members, then I'm the person that needs to intervene and help that person. And it might be to help them find the right person, but you don't just want to be sending them away to the HR department or the wellbeing or the welfare department. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I think we're aligned.
With and the extension of that is just like obviously the having the ability to have those difficult conversations and so forth, which comes back to that servant leader. We've created this culture of servant leaders because we've got to dance around. I've got to help them, or versus helping can be part of having a difficult conversation.
That's right.
Because if I have a difficult conversation, I'm going to face a HR issue. Yeah. Versus I want to help this person be a better version. And if they see it that way, I'm meeting them at their level, and this is ultimately in good faith looking for them to be a better version of them, not me being critical of them.
That's right.
My experiences, I've found that some people find that difficult because of their fear of what could happen because of, in Australia, you can't sack someone or you can't have a difficult conversation because what if they go and do this?
Yep.
If you're operating in that mindset, it's limiting your possibilities because you can't be having the honest conversation. But that's deeper than just, you can't just jump into that. You've got to build trust, and you've got to have that level of understanding with those people that,
Well, you've got to practice it too, mate.
Correct.
Like that's one of the things. Like, it's not just, and it's a good shout on the servant-based leader, because they'll just do the job instead of addressing the behaviour or addressing the issue, because it's just a whole lot easier. But what we do is like, if you actually teach them that you actually don't even need to tell anyone anything, you just ask the right questions and you're going to get an outcome. It's asking the right questions around how they think they performed, how they think their behaviours align to what our company values are. How could they be better next time? And all of a sudden you take the heat out of those conversations. And the only way that they can get better at those things is to practice them. One, know them. Two, practice them. So it's like I said, it's really simple for somebody that has told, ask the right questions 1,000 times to make sure that the person understands why they're not in the team this week, or they've missed a World Cup final. But with the right amount of practice for anybody at any level of people leadership, that it will take care of itself.
Has anyone ever come back to you after you've had one of those really honest conversations and said thank you?
Yeah, absolutely. And years later.
Yeah, I've had the same.
Yeah, or read about it in the newspaper, or seen a social media post on, all of a sudden my name gets, it goes back to a time when Brad Donald didn't pick me and he rang me before this tournament and he said this and he was honest with me, or asked me. And again, I wouldn't ring anyone and tell them. I like everybody to understand where they were at. If you'd been in the team the year before, then you always got a phone call. But it was always a question about, do you think you deserve to be in the team? And sometimes we had disagreements on whether or not they should have. And I'd just follow that up with another conversation around, or another question. Well, do you think that the player that got selected in front of you might have outperformed you in statistics, or had some better off-field performances as well as on-field? And you can't argue with that. They can't turn around and say, no. There's this self-realisation, if I ask the right questions, that that's why I didn't get selected.
I've got to ask a personal question now. How do you go with your kids? Because I'm like, right in that phase of they get this every day, Dad. I know I'm not in the Wallabies yet. I'm not in the NRL yet, Dad. Just be Dad.
Matt's trying some different coaching
Right, yeah,
He's
no,
trying-
there's
trying
lots.
some different ways.
My strategy, I've told this story several times to people, but I'll just put it out there. I had my kids solo for the weekend. My wife went away. And it's a constant conversation in the morning about getting ready and let's, get ready for our school. It's consistent, I'm not doing everything, trying to make them a bit more self-sufficient. And my wife has a constant conversation. It's a battle. And anyway, Thursday I faced it. I had it all on and I was like, okay, Friday comes, you know what? I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to hanging out and watch the TV and see. And anyway, I was like, and they're like, Dad, what do we? I was like, well, hey, it's in there. You can. Well, I need this. Well, go and get in there. And they worked it out. They got their lunch and we were late to school and then I got in the car and I said, how was that morning? Did you notice what I was doing? And they're like, yeah, you were sitting around. and I said, was it annoying? And they were like, yeah, you didn't help us at all. And I said, oh, well, next time maybe you could see where we're coming from. And I was like, I'm not sure. Anyway, it hasn't worked yet. That's why I'm asking.
Well, no, man,
On Monday, we've come up today. We faced the same thing that Mum was back and it was a slow start.
It's no different.
But
it's a great coaching opportunity that you've taken there.
Yeah.
It really is. I've got a couple of things to say on kids. And look, the self-determination theory is it basically outlines what intrinsically motivates us, which is belonging, autonomy, and competence. So they're three things as leaders that we want to make sure our kids have got. Now, I use the example of you could go and ask your kids to clean their room 50 times and it doesn't happen. If it's the same if you went and if you were leaning over the shoulder of one of your workers and saying, have you got that report to me? Have you got that report to me? How motivated would they be to do that report? I learned this early and sometimes I fluff around and I certainly haven't got the parenting stuff right. And Christy, I drive her crazy sometimes about the long game when it comes to trying to get a result out of my kids.
You're being strategic.
Yeah. So I'll go, no, the first thing that you've got to do is get connection. And so, because the kids, their radar's like doing this one. They don't really want to talk to mum and dad, especially if they're playing a game or they're outside shooting hoops. So the first thing to do is find that connection. One of my boys is footy mad. So for me, how's footy? And it's a slow burn to get in there. And then all of a sudden, once I know I've got him talking, then he's asked me a question. It's time to strike. And it's like, hey, mate, you understand we've got friends coming over, a bit of the belonging stuff. We don't want the house to look, we don't want it to look dirty. Any chance there's a point in time where I can jump in and help you clean your room. And he wants that autonomy, right? He goes, look, I'll do that. And he'll tell me when he's going to do it. So it's a way better way of going.
I was thinking of you going, mate, you're letting down the team. I've cleaned the kitchen and the lounge room, mate, but your room is fucking shit show.
Oh, look, let me tell you, I've messed up plenty of times and lost my marbles when I've asked 4 or 5 times and it hasn't happened. But
we're all guilty of that.
Kids can be so different on that, though, just on that. Because my daughter just does it all. She'll clean it. She'll do whatever you ask her to do. And my son couldn't care less. He's the 50 times ask him to do it and he's still battling. So I don't know what the thing, because they're just opposites.
I think what we've established is next time Michelle goes away, Matt's going to ask your daughter to come down and, and run
she
the
might
show.
have to help out. Yeah.
Run the show.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good. Hey, they survived. They're still alive and it's Monday.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. You've done well. Done well.
We didn't cook.
Take out for the whole weekend. That was the best part.
That was the best part.
That is.
That's funny.
I was waiting for the secret sauce, Brad. That's what I was like, this.
He had his pen ready. He was taking notes.
I was taking notes. So I was like, this will be it.
A couple of the best sports psychologists, Dr. Phil Jauncey, he's a bloke that got around with Wayne Bennett for a long time. He's based in Brisbane. And Professor Cliff Mallett, he's actually behind the personal assets framework with Jean Cote, which is the framework we use for leadership coaching at Huddle. But those two guys, when you hear them talk about motivation and sport, it directly aligns to your kids. Like, I remember Dr. Phil Jauncey. He's probably in his 80s now, but I remember him saying his kids. He never had to ask them to clean up anything because he was like, if the toy was on the floor, it went in the bin. And he only ever had to do that once. He was just like, there is a result. He goes, your car runs out of petrol. You can go, please, 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 get me to the petrol station. He goes, it's not going to get you to the petrol station. So if I tell you that you're, this is the mistake that parents make, that we're full of empty threats, that if you say that your toy left on the floor is going to end up in the bin, or you're not going to get new toys, or you're not going to get new things until this happens, then once that happens and that discipline's established, then you don't have to ask him again. But pretty strict household, I'd say.
I tend to agree with a lot of that, though. Like just the principle of it. I mean, yeah, it's hard to follow through and throw the toy out that you may have paid for and spent a bit of money on. But the principle of that is that there is a reaction to your action or lack of action, in that instance. So I think we have to teach kids that.
It's a learned behavior, but it's a learned behavior in business too, isn't it? If you talk about values and then don't keep people to those standards and so forth, and you let that happen, it creeps in and then it affects culture. And then, John, he got away with that forever. Now you're criticizing me. Like it's that stuff, and it sort of definitely crosses. I was listening to you then, I was thinking that so much crosses over.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
It goes back to not selecting the captain. Like if we had have gone down that path of selecting it.
What I heard, Michelle, is I can chill on the couch.
I'm pretty sure that's the number one thing that you've got to do.
It was funny, he didn't mention how old his kids are, but like for people are probably thinking, oh yeah, that's good if they're like teenagers, but what they don't know is Matt has like a 12-month-old, and he's just forcing this 12-month-old to fucking figure out its own lunch and breakfast and what. I'm joking. They're older than that, 18 months at least. I just wanted to ask you, like, just obviously for businesses, that might be listening to this and thinking about, getting someone like yourself in or getting you in, like, it doesn't have, you don't have to be a big business to engage in working on your people, because I think like a lot of people tie some of this sort of stuff to corporates,
absolutely.
They're putting in the effort to do all these things because they have the budget for it and all that kind of stuff. Like how do you say to that?
Yeah, no, definitely not. Like there's all sorts of levels that you can engage at. And, like what personally, we work with businesses from 6 people to 600 people. So, and hopefully, like some more and some less.
Yeah.
I think anybody that's interested in either scaling, and that needs to happen through leadership capability, or just investing in their people, then, I think it's the cynic stuff. Like you get a coach. You actually get somebody to come in and coach you, and you understand what those principles of coaching are, and you become a great coach yourself. And it could be any size, it's all the same principles.
Yeah, that's fair. What's a coach do to coach themselves? How does that work? How do you, as a coach, continue to innovate yourself and continue to grow?
It's a really good question, and it's something that like I think I picked up from had super successful teams, but every time that we played a campaign, we treated it, and the self-reflection that went into that was as if we lost it. What could we do? And again, just learning, like in the early days, I used the book Legacy from John Kerr, about the All Blacks. And, there's a couple of sayings in that stick, and, when you're on top of your game, change your game. And I think that's really important is, don't be predictable. So as a coach, that was the same thing on me, looking for those opportunities to go and see. I was fortunate enough to travel to different areas of the world, and we went to the NYPD and looked at the way that their leadership structures were in place, and what we learnt there about leadership and coaching was probably more than going and seeing another sport. And we're really, as we develop the huddle coaching and leadership, all of the founders and all of the people involved there, it is super important. All of our staff have a $5,000 professional and personal development budget. So it's a high priority for us because things move so quickly.
Yeah.
And you can get ideas, like you can cross-pollinate from just about anywhere, and we've got to stay on top of it. At the end of the day, does the actual major principles of leadership change? I don't think so. It's about being a good human and really showing genuine and authentic care for your people. And if you can do that, you can get your people to do just about anything. But yeah, there are certainly things on the peripheral that you can change up and make it look different.
You mentioned Simon a few times. I'll butcher his quote, but it was something like he said, you know, I'm really embarrassed to be standing on this stage right now, but because there shouldn't be a job for me. But, you know, this leadership and culture, it's the forefront of winning in business or something like that, along those lines. And we haven't got it right yet, so I still have a job, and it will continue to be because it's a constant evolution, and I think it changes in time. You know, it's not what we did 20 years ago is not going to be there in 20 years' time. Yep. How we're operating today is different than how we were operated 20 years ago. So the evolution of leadership in business and it's the way we coach, you know, the more information we get, the way sports teams are managed and so forth you're always going to be in, you know, it's a great business to be in. It's not going away. I guess it's not like a gold miner where you're getting rid of the gold and you're running out of gold. Well,
if there's people and there's more people, you know, right. they're a bit like, you know, for those first time parents, you know, they said there's no manual with the kid, and we all know it. If you've had children, you know it, and you're trying to suss out and work out what makes it sleep, what makes it eat, and all the rest of it. But every single person that you manage is exactly the same, and you know, no team have I ever coached has been exactly the same because the people and the dynamic within it are different. So I think there'll always be room for coaches to actually, you know, anywhere where there's human interaction, we're going to be trying to refine that till the end of the days. So yeah, no, he's spot on.
How fast have you turned? Have you ever been surprised at how fast you've turned something around in terms of a team?
Yeah, absolutely. Some teams like extremely quickly, like from a sporting perspective. Absolutely understanding there's a lot more intrinsic motivation in sport, right? Because you're playing for a jersey, and normally I was handing out state or national jerseys. Yeah. But then in terms of construction, I've seen some leaders, and you know, we've got a leader that led 40 people probably 18 months ago that now leads 150. And it was an absolute. I can point to the moment in time where a light bulb came on top of his head, and he understood exactly what we were trying to teach him. And it was around making sure that there's that genuine and authentic care, not just the outcome from the work point of view. And it was from that moment on that it was just like there's no one that would ever leave that bloke, I don't think now, and he really, really gets it. So yeah, it's been an incredible turnaround. There are the big
Is that
thing.
A consistent gap?
Sorry, no.
No, have your thoughts.
Oh, what I was going to say is like leadership is a trainable skill, right? But it takes time, and for some people it doesn't take a great amount of time, and for others it takes a hell of a lot of time. And for an organisation, it's exactly the same. Some organisations, if they're ready and their leadership teams are ready, it can be turned around quite quickly. But if there's resistance, it does take time.
Yeah, that chemistry of change is like different for everyone. So people need to bang up against the wall a few times, but then they have that moment of insight and they're like, all right, I can go, but others are straight through. Mate, it reminds me of like I was just at a client this morning, and I was watching a bloke that runs a yard watch a forklift driver, and he's getting frustrated at the forklift driver going, I've told that bloke 10 times not to load the truck like that. And I just looked at him and said, well, aren't you an idiot? And he goes, what? I've told him 10 times. And I go, so if you've told him 10 times and he still can't do it right, who does that reflect on? No, it's on the way that you taught him, mate. You've got to figure out a way to teach him that he's going to understand. Like, it's a simple act of loading the truck. This is what you're telling me. Let's work out a way that we make that happen. Let's start asking him some questions. So I think that's somewhere else and again, servant-based leaders get wound up in that stuff as well. Like, I've told him and I've told him. And you can tell your kid to clean his room, but we've worked out the best way to do it is to ask him when to do it after you've had the long journey of how their football career is going.
Sounds like something for you to take over.
Oh, put that in my back
How many
pocket.
times have you told him?
It's outside my wheelhouse. We're a good team. So you got to keep caring, keep showing up for your kids and and your people.
Absolutely.
I'm interested. You said before about we talked at the start about them being coachable. What about the ones that you come into that aren't that? How do you get that first? Because I'm assuming it's pretty hard to bring. You mentioned before it's pretty if they're not aligned. How do you bring that in? Like you've walked in to an organization, the owner or the leader is like, yeah, we want to do this. We want to invest in people. You get into it with some supervisors or managers, and they're just like, mate,
Yeah,
piss off with your bullshit woo woo,
really
breath work and tell me that I should be all.
It's really important, for your well-being. I think understanding that early adopters are real important too. And that first follower, you guys would have seen the dancing man and the lessons that you learn in leadership about the first follower. It's finding those early.
Yeah.
In a team,
You've seen that video, yeah?
Oh yeah.
Seen the video, and it's great, and it does. So when you have that resistance, you actually need to find your first and second follower. They're more important, and the early adopters, and there will be some early adopters.
I like the word believer.
Yeah, true believers.
Instead of the follower, like I think you can have a believer. Like they've bought into your, what you're talking about. That
was definitely something that we used when we were growing the women's movement in sport. Was they're a true believer.
Yeah,
so it's a good shout that too. I just from a sports perspective, like I remember the transition in the team when we actually about 3 years into running the national program, we got our first NRLW. So the players had gone off into their churches, we'll call them, because they've different religions in each of the churches as to how they tackle and how they run attack shape and how they do all these sorts of different things. So the first campaign after the first NRLW season was one of the craziest for us.
Would have been the hardest.
It was because we came in with all the Broncos players thinking that they should play a certain way and they thought they had a higher level of knowledge than the players from the Roosters because
Probably
the
did.
Broncos is
Probably did, but keep going.
they might have at that stage. They'd won a premiership or two in the first
Yeah, I
couple
was going to say,
years,
didn't we win 3 straight at the start? No, that's okay. That's all right. Let's just ignore that though for the team.
But then for them to understand that this is a new team, you need to leave those beliefs at the door and collectively we start again. And there was some resistance early days because
was this the culture for the national team, was it?
Yeah. So the national team. So they just come straight out of the back of the grand final. 3 or 4 days later, they then come in and we had to remind them that you had to leave.
That would be hard that early, that quick.
And it was the first time that they'd done it.
Yeah.
And they bought so heavy into their clubs, which is exactly what we wanted them to do.
Yeah.
That it was no longer us that was shaping the way that the game went and just how they played it. That they were getting different views and opinions from their coaches, which they had to have belief in back in their clubs.
Yeah.
But then as soon as they came back through that door, and it was like, we actually used we're out at Carina and I remember Trevor Gilmeister came over and saw what was going on and he ended up giving the girls half a bake himself and he said one of the things that we have with the Kangaroos is you leave your club hats at the door, guys, otherwise you don't come through the door. And,
I remember someone telling that story though from the men's side that had that same challenge with the Queensland New South Wales thing.
Too right.
I can't remember who it was that was talking about it, but it's from a little while back. It might have been Mal or it might have been someone else, but they had that same challenge.
Look, it's really difficult. And then, because we created Origin on the back of this for the women as well. So they're beating the shit out of each other 3 times a year. And the media hypes it up rivalry, to the point where there's, they even use the word hate. Yeah. And then you've got to jump into that same team and you've almost always got the 2 captains of the team because they're the best players then coming together. But that's a great place to start because they're the true believers. They're the early adopters. So you get them together and you go, how are we going to address this and how are we going to crack into it? And it's been pretty successful.
Just fascinated by the furniture we got from IKEA over there. Like the squeaky eye. It's made.
I got some squeakies.
It's made squeaky. That it's listening to the coaches in America that I listened to. Coach K talked about the US team and the university team, and and just the egos at the door, he's like you couldn't tell like the best players in the world to check their ego but they also had to have their own culture. For the US team, not the culture from the club that they played for, the university. So he had so many dynamics so they had to create their own for the US team, which was leaving that stuff for your club and the university at the door, and not creating a reversioned version of those ones they needed their own for the actual, for the national team. And that gave clear air for the team to come together.
It's similar to what you were saying before about playing to your strengths in business. And when you've got a national team, you normally end up with the best players. And sometimes the best players play in the same position. So in that team, you actually have to play a different position and play a different role. So letting them understand and helping them, you could just imagine the dream teams of the past and how hard it would have been to pull those egos into the one group where they were all used to being the one out man.
Kobe Bryant. I think you mentioned Kobe Bryant because he had to play out of position.
Yep.
And that he had to get him on the bus.
Yeah.
Which wasn't easy.
Do you know the funniest one, just going off topic, but the dream team, the original dream team with Jordan and Magic Johnson, Larry Bird and those guys. Have you ever seen the video? They show the behind the scenes from back in, I think it was 92. They show Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and there was someone else, and they were standing there talking about, like, I'm the guy. No, I'm the guy. And then Magic Johnson tells a story that Michael Jordan walked into the room and they all looked at him and went, okay, he's the guy. So sometimes they figure it out for themselves, I guess.
Males tend to have a better understanding of hierarchy than what females do. But yeah, absolutely right.
Mate, we've covered off a lot. I guess, not to put you on the spot, but I guess leaving us with a thought for leadership. I mean, one thing that every leader should be doing, in your view? Anything that springs to mind?
Look, I've already thrown a few of the sayings out. One thing that I've always had written on my whiteboard, and I still have it, even though I'm doing a little bit of coaching with the New Zealand Warriors, but not a heap, is that relationships are more valuable than trophies. And I think that's something that I wed myself to as a leader, and those genuine, authentic relationships and care for your people, it will just turbocharge your outcomes in terms of your people and people wanting to show up for the way you treat them. That's my view, and that's why I think even as we've developed our own business, I've had a stream of people asking what we're doing, how they can get involved, how they can come work for us. And hopefully I take a lot of pride out of that because of the way that I've either led them in on the field or led them in terms of my corporate roles with the NRL over the years. So, yeah.
I have a follow-up thought on that. On the flip side, as a young person coming through or a person that's wanting to be, to work with a good leader, or how do they show up? How do they show a way of showing up so that, and it's difficult because some leaders aren't, they haven't learnt the way. They've learnt maybe a poor way to communicate, but how could someone show up to try and get more from the person they're working with?
It's a good question too. Like it's not showing up to the same person. I think young people, like the best bit of advice we can give them is to get around as many people as they can, to network, to learn and use the two ears more than the one mouth. I think that's really important. They say that, you should listen twice as much as what you talk. And if you get yourself in those rooms with those people and you watch and when you do use your mouth, you ask questions. You don't tell somebody how they should be doing it or whatever. But again, I think the success for a lot of people comes from their ability to network. Their ability to have a strong and a broad network. And I think for young people, getting around as many people and seeing as many different styles as possible whilst you develop your own is super important. And that's, I learned that young as well and made sure that every single opportunity, if somebody walks into the room and or presents at a conference, I always made I would make sure that I would go up to that person. I would introduce myself, thank them for being there, tell them one key thing that I got out of that. And I couldn't tell you how many times over the years when I'd meet that person for a second time and they'd remember me because of that. So again, just developing a network when you don't even realise that you are.
That's a good point.
Well played.
Well played.
You made the team, mate.
I made the team. Beautiful. No worries. I was just waiting for you to ask me a few more questions. And do you think your performance was up to scratch?
Yeah.
Do you think there would be a better coach
We'll do a
out
follow-up.
there
We'll do a follow-up.
that could give us, that could certainly give us a little bit more insight into what you're talking about there.
We'll do a second pod where we'll ask you to.
Right, we want to know all of the background history, but that might be
It's a lot.
That might be a paid version of that one, because I'm sure you've got lots of secrets from the inner workings of the professional sports arena of Australia.
Yeah, no, there's certainly been some.
But hey,
crazy
it's
stuff.
a pleasure working with you, and also I think corporate Australia is lucky to have you working across. So thanks for what you're doing, and I think like I said earlier, there's no shortage of it, and it will keep changing. But the stuff you're doing with us has been great. So thanks.
Appreciate you, boys, and your desire to invest in your people. It makes it easy for people like me. So yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Awesome.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for joining us.